You rarely hear Supreme Court justices talking during the term, but now we've got a new interview with who else? Chief Justice Roberts, who's once again doubling down and trying to be a foil to Donald Trump on the issue of judicial independence. John Roberts is an interesting cat for me. For many of the reasons that there is an encroachment on judicial independence, many of those reasons are because of the Roberts Court giving Donald Trump, a convicted felon, a carte blanche, in his view, through the immunity decision that came out last summer. This is mainly why we're watching the Trump administration, and Donald Trump in particular, and his Department of Justice bashing federal judges. And John Roberts, he likes all the niceties, right? Oh, please don't do that. And he issued a statement I've never heard of in the history of the Supreme Court. He issued a direct statement. It was like a letter from the head of the judiciary to the head of the executive branch to tell Donald Trump to knock it off with his calls for impeachment of federal judges. Seems to have worked to a certain degree. But now we've got new reporting that John Roberts stepped out of character a little bit during an interview in which he said the independence of the judiciary, of course, is very important, and we can't do our job as a constitutional republic without it. I want to talk about that statement. I want to talk about Chief Justice Roberts and what we're watching with the Roberts Court, the only way I know how, without blowing smoke or sunshine, here on Legal AF. All right, let's dive into it. Chief Justice Roberts is the first among equals. He's responsible as the Chief Justice for many administrative things. He's the head of the judiciary branch. He's the head, and all the other lower, inferior federal courts report to him ultimately and to people that he chooses. That includes the circuit courts. That includes the appellate courts. That includes the trial court judges in the district court. And he's also the one that makes the ultimate decisions administratively on this United States Supreme Court. Once a majority decision, a majority is reached, they do the counting, and there's a 5-4 or 6-3, 7-2, 9-0, whatever it is. Then the chief judge picks somebody from the majority to write the opinion. Sometimes he takes it for himself. Chief Justice Roberts wrote many of the opinions that have unleashed Donald Trump, including the immunity decision, including the Colorado insurrectionist decision, in which we wanted to keep Donald Trump off the ballot as an insurrectionist. Colorado agreed with us, but the Supreme Court said no. That was also written by Chief Justice Roberts. So he can write the decision himself, or he can assign it to usually the next ranking person who wants to write that particular opinion once they determine what the majority is. So there's a lot of power in being the Chief Justice. Chief Justice, can be ultimately removed. In other words, John Roberts doesn't have to be the Chief Justice. If the Democrats take back the White House, which we expect in 2028, I think Ketanji Brown Jackson is going to be the Chief Justice, and Roberts can be returned to just being a regular justice until he resigns or retires. And if you think Trump's busy lopping off heads and firing people, wait till the Democrats get back in office and definitely replace John Roberts as the Chief Justice. But he is the Chief Justice now. He also is responsible for presiding over a couple of circuit courts, the Fourth Circuit Court in Maryland, out of Maryland, covers that. And also the anything that comes out of the D.C. Court of Appeals or the Federal Court of Appeals comes up through Chief Justice Roberts. Now, Roberts, it has a problem on its hands because the Roberts Court is going to go down in history as circling the drain of history, of being on the wrong side, for unleashing the Leviathan of Donald Trump, for taking what we had was three co-equal branches of government that were delicately balanced and wreck and ruin that, putting the presidency above the other two branches. I mean, if you were a political cartoonist, you'd put Congress on one knee and the judiciary on the other with a giant King Trump. And that's because of Roberts. We lost the woman's right to choose because ultimately of Roberts. Sure, the opinion was written by Alito, but he didn't work the hallways to get the vote the other way. And he voted in favor of the Dobbs decision. So every major decision that has rocked and impacted your life from the Supreme Court in the last 10 years, let's just take it at 10 years, John Roberts has either written it or John Roberts has been in the majority. So you know who to blame. You know who to blame. Now, Roberts also, particularly, just so you can give you some context here, my entire life, for all 59 years, there's only been Republicans dominating the majority of the Supreme Court. Let me repeat that. At no time during my lifetime unless you go back to the Warren Burger Court, at no time during my lifetime, in the last 50 years, has there been anything other than a Republican majority dominating the United States Supreme Court. So what we're in now is not unusual. Usually it's a little bit narrower. It's a little bit like 5-4s, but right now we got 6 reliable votes for right-wing MAGA Trump things. 6. Roberts, Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, Alito, Thomas, and Amy Coney Barrett on occasion. Amy Coney Barrett is starting to take the mantle of having this be her court because she's voting with the majority more than the others. And even though she's right, center, she's in the center. So Roberts, to come on with an interview and talk about the rule of law and talk about the importance of judicial independence, this is like a broken record. I mean, he started with his January 1st State of the Judiciary address in writing, in which he focused on the independence of the judiciary and the attacks. And he was very prescient about what was going to happen in this coming year in the era of Trump, because that's all we've been watching is judicial court bashing by Trump and those around him. So that started Jan 1. Then we had a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, this extraordinary stepping out of character for John Roberts, where he says, stop it, pump the brakes, stop attacking judges and stop attacking them by calling for their impeachment. There's only been 15 judges in the history of the United States ever impeached, and almost all of them for some sort of bribery. Knock it off. That's what the appellate process is for. That's what he said in a couple of line sentence. And now we've got the latest. And I think it's interesting because even though we've been doing the live oral arguments at the United States Supreme Court, we've got a couple up there right now you can listen to up on Legal AF under live. You rarely hear them talk. And I want you to see how this man's mind works. Let's roll the clip.
Let's talk about something a little more important, a little more substantive. I think most judges would agree that judicial independence is crucial. Do you agree? What do you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's central. The only real political science innovation in our Constitution, I mean, parliaments have been around for 800 years, and obviously executives, is the establishment of an independent judiciary. Even places you think are similar to ours, like England, the judiciary in England was part of Parliament. I mean, they sat in the House of Lords, and because Parliament was supreme. But in our Constitution, judges and the judiciary is a co-equal branch of government, separate from the others, with the authority to interpret the Constitution as law and strike down, obviously, acts of Congress or acts of the president. And that innovation doesn't work if it's not, the judiciary is not independent. Its job is to obviously decide cases, but in the course of that, check the excesses of Congress or of the executive, and that does require a degree of independence.
What do you think of these calls for impeachment of judges based on the decisions that they've made?
Well, I've already spoken to that, and
Yeah.
Impeachment is not how you register disagreement with decisions.
That's what you're for, right? That's what you're there for.
That's what we're there for. Yeah.
For me, it's a lot of crocodile tears. He caused this problem, Roberts. He should take responsibility for it, and to say, I don't know what happened here. I don't know how do we have an out of control, all-powerful, fascist-like president? You created it. What did you think was going to happen when you gave him oxygen and you gave him effectively a get out of jail free card and you gave him immunity from criminal prosecution? What did you think was going to happen? I would love if I could have a beer, a cup of tea, a chai latte with Roberts. I would love to ask him what was going through your mind, man. And the problem is they're hermetically sealed in this ivory tower of the Supreme Court. They haven't had a conversation with a normal person in 30 or 40 years. None of them. Maybe some of the Democrats. But Roberts, what's he talking to? He's talking to other Federalist Society snobs, other elites. When was the last time he had a conversation with the checkout girl or boy or man or transgender person at the supermarket? When was that? When was the last time he talked to the person pumping his gas? When was the last time he talked to the person doing a repair in his house? Or a vendor? Or a delivery person? Or a school teacher? Or a firefighter? Or a police officer? Or anybody on the front lines? Or a podcaster? When was the last time? They are so disconnected, and it makes them, as a result, not accountable to the American people. Because they sit in a star chamber passing judgment on the rest of us and sticking us with their antiquated right wing, out of step with our culture and society rulings. Yeah, maybe if you got the Supreme Court in line with where people are about gay marriage, where people really are about the rights of people who are transgender, where they are about women and reproductive rights. Maybe if you align the Supreme Court with that, you wouldn't have this problem of court bashing and you wouldn't have a Donald Trump. Could you imagine if we didn't have Donald Trump right now? What will we be talking about here on Legal AF? Plenty, trust me. As long as there's a Republican Party and there's a MAGA, which is going to long survive beyond Donald Trump, there is going to be a need for you and I, the rest of us here on Legal AF, to talk to each other at the intersection of law and politics. I'm glad you're here. I'm going to keep bringing it to you the only way I know how. No, not blowing smoke, not blowing sunshine here on Legal AF. Take a moment, hit the subscribe button. Come on over to our Substack, Legal AF Substack. We already built that to 30,000 subscribers, and we're only a week old. So until our next report, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.